It began with one mother's questioning, stubbornness, seeking clarity, concern, anger, and worry. Watching hope quietly slip away, her journey, filled with questions and few to no answers, would become the start of something bigger. A ripple that will reach far beyond our home to family just like hers. Families walking the same uncertain paths, scared, overwhelmed, and searching for guidance. From her hunger emerged actions. From pain came purpose. From her story, a string of hope and care. And that hope, it continues to grow with every family that steps into Shades of Life Care Limited.
My name is Dr. Ezia Fakakuokolo. I'm a board certified behavior analyst. I'm also a qualified behavior analyst. But before all of that, I am a parent, so I'm a parent practitioner. I keep records of, all the children, their developmental milestones, height, first food, first poo, first smile, that sort of thing. In the course of doing that, I realized that about just before her third birthday, that there were some milestones that she wasn't meeting and hadn't met. So when I compared her to the older ones and the younger one, I'm like, what's going on here? She wasn't as vocal as her siblings. So of course, me, my characteristics where I was busy talking and yakety yak. And when I get to the office, I would tell all my friends and anybody else that cared to listen. So my friends, one of them was like, you know what? While we're praying, can you just take her to go and see the doctor? Because it doesn't sound, let's just see what's going on.
Before his first birthday, I was already concerned about the fact that he didn't have any words. He wasn't making eye contact. He wasn't pointing. He wasn't doing any of those things that I thought he should be doing at one. I mean, I was subscribed to all the necessary apps on, raising a child and all of that. So I knew what to look out for in terms of milestones. And I'd already started getting concerned when he wasn't meeting those milestones at one. But I didn't want to worry because they would say children grow at their own pace.
There were perhaps two different stages. I'd say from about 18 months or so, I identified things that I thought were a little bit different about my son. Things like lots and lots of spinning around, flapping hands, not necessarily being as verbal as I had expected him to be at that stage. However, I didn't realize what those differences meant.
We went off to see the pediatrician. I had no clue. She called us in, my husband and I, gave us some questions, 3 parts to respond. And at the end of the day, she was like, she looked at us. The expression on her face was like, okay, these ones are obviously clueless. They don't know what's going on. And so she said, oh, she believes she has autism. I was like, what on earth is that?
We were in the midst of the COVID pandemic, which meant that our son wasn't really spending as much time, with others, and we didn't get to have as many experiences seeing other children who were the same age as him, explore, play, and interact with each other. So while I raised some of the concerns I had with our pediatrician and others, what I would usually hear were things like, oh, boys can be late talkers, he'll probably catch up, children can have, different unique things about them. There was never really a push or even a suggestion to do any further testing.
When it really started to become a concern was when he was in preschool, he was in kindergarten or so, and then they had some sort of health check in class, and his teacher had concerns. His teacher had concerns about, the fact that he wasn't playing with his peers. He would play very well on his own, but he wasn't socializing. He would keep to himself, And he just really did seem different. And his teacher had then spoken to me about the health check that they did and the findings that they had concerning him, and just all these concerns that she had about him. And at that point, I think it started to really dawn on me that my child was different from most other children that I had seen and interacted with.
My husband jumped on the internet. Thank God there was internet then, and started Googling and doing, the research, looking for things.
I felt very weighed down. I felt very sad. It just felt like, I could really just feel the weight of the entire situation resting on me. So definitely a lot of sadness, a lot of confusion, a lot of questions like why.
The more they gave me information, the more I shut down. The more they gave me information, the more I shut down. Because I was like, you don't wait all this while to have a child. And then after 5 years, you have a child, and the child has all these things going on. What on earth is it? Oh Lord, is this the best you could do?
There was a whole mix of emotions. Because I didn't have any familiarity with autism before we received the diagnosis, one of the emotions that I felt was certainly fear, and it was just fear of the unknown. I think another part of me, though, also felt a sense of relief because we could finally understand, why perhaps we weren't progressing in the ways we thought we would when it came to his communication. Certainly fear and anxiety about what the future would hold.
All I knew was that this child needed to meet her milestones like her siblings, and we were going to do whatever we needed to do for that to happen. At the time when we found out that my daughter was on the spectrum, we just went with the flow of what a pediatrician had recommended at the time. So it was basically people or an organization that said they were doing what's called ABA, and then a speech person much later, but the focus was on the ABA. I don't know what it was, but somehow I just felt that what was being done then, we required a little more, because I kind of, like every parent, had some goals, had some ambition, had things that I felt that my daughter should be doing in comparison to her siblings and her peers, of course. When I wasn't getting it was, I just felt that there was something missing. And so we would go out, a couple of parents then, we would either import help, we were going to, international help, we would go to Europe, the States, then some other African countries. Then, most popular then was everybody going to South Africa. But having seen what was offered both locally and internationally, I felt that there was just a niggling feeling that something was missing. I couldn't quite place my finger on it, but I just knew that I was looking for something else that I just wasn't getting. When I would ask a question, I wasn't getting the sort of answer I was looking for. If I asked you a question like, what are you doing with my child, or how are we measuring progress? And I'm getting responses like, she will do it now, just give me time. That wasn't very scientific for me at the point. And then, like I said, I had some other parents who were also looking. And so I thought, do some research and see what it is that obtains internationally. And it was in the course of doing all of that research that I came across a professor emeritus who was based in Canada. He then pointed me to the certification body, and said to me, look, read this up. This may be what you're looking for. And so as soon as I read, the whole thing, what they were doing about ABA, it just clicked. There was just that thing that, yes, this is it. This is what you're looking for. In the process of doing that, there was, again, I went to the board website, was looking through schools where to apply. And I then saw there was somebody credentialed, or there was somebody providing training in Nigeria. They contacted me, and I started from the basic of doing what was then called the Registered Behavior Technician coursework, to just be sure that this area was really what I was looking for. So I started with the RBT. At the time, I was, a lot of us were there, but I guess that I just had this drive, and they had just started credentialing RBTs without the exam. So I jumped on it and just got certified. I think I probably was either the first or so that got it then. And following on, did the coursework for what we call the Board Certified Assistant Behavior Analyst, and just kept going. I have other colleagues then, they're also in the field now. We all just banded together, did the training. At the time when I completed the behavior technician, I was practicing under a supervisor then for about a year as I was doing the BCABA coursework. Finished that, and then set up Shades of Light. Over the 10 years plus, we've just gone from, okay, maybe just one person, let me work with one client, see if I can make impact. And from just working with that one client, going through being supervised, I figured, okay, this is getting interesting. Let me just go do a master's in the whole thing. So I went off, left my team behind, and went off to the UK to do a master's in ABA and in intellectual disabilities. Just as I was rounding that up and having completed and passed my board exam, my husband just sowed a seed. Why don't you just do a PhD? And I'm like, PhD? Oh goodness. It's wonderful enough that I'm going back to school after like nearly 30 years. They want me to do a PhD, but here I am, completed the PhD. And with each step, it's always been, how do I equip myself better? What can I do better? How can I work with this population? So it wasn't just about my daughter now. Yes, working with her, just helping her find her footing, helping her siblings integrate and understand what this disorder is all about, because autism is hidden. But just saying to myself that, look, I know that there are other people out there who are looking for resources, who don't know where to turn. It's not everybody that can afford to leave the country. So how do I contribute my quota? And so we just kept going, and here we are today, just working with within the community and other families, and yeah, it's been rewarding.
The most challenging part for me has always been being able to feel comfortable and assured that we were doing the best we could for our son.
The fact that people around me are clueless about autism, what it means, how it impacts a family, how it impacts a child, their cluelessness definitely put me in a position where I felt unsupported.
Am I doing the right things? Am I using the right tools I should be using? Does he have the right supports that he should have, the right resources that he should have? Because my main focus was always for him to ultimately blossom to the greatest extent that he could blossom.
From our medical institutions to educational institutions to even the lack of knowledge by our friends, our family members, all of these things just make it really challenging to navigate this journey.
What was most crucial to me was that we were doing as much as we could so he had as great a chance as we could give him to excel and advance as much as he had the capacity to do.
The hardest part, apart from retiring from a well-paying job to go into this area, start charting unknown course, was really getting the first client. I remember then turning to my supervisor at the time and saying, "Oh my gosh, we've gone for nearly 1 year and there's nobody." So I just kept leaving the house. We registered a company. I guess people don't quite understand what's going on, not to talk of trusting you and believing, oh, that you actually would know what you're doing. So I kept going, and my supervisor then was like, oh, just keep going, you'll be fine, they're going to come, and just trust the process. And people not quite believing that we know what we're doing. And the other part again was the ethical way of doing things. People were just so used to certain ways of doing things. And I remember some of my early team members and the staff then going, "Oh, no, 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 we need to be in people's face." And I said, "We're not putting any advert. We're not going to be like everybody else trying to convince people that what we would do is just let the work of our hands speak to it." So that was really difficult, being patient to see the clientele grow. First of all, for them to come in, build trust in us, and then grow. That was really challenging.
We had no idea about what resources were available on the ground. As I mentioned, I wasn't even familiar with autism, so I had no sense of the sort of support we would be able to find here in Nigeria. And I think when I thought about the things, we would really want, it was somewhere where we could speak to people who had some sort of experience with autism, and so knew, what the journey might look like. People who could speak to us about recommending, therapies that we could utilize, recommending the things that we could do at home to support our child, being able to answer the many questions that we had about, autism and the journey ahead, and what the therapies would look like and involve. A group of people who we could turn to about the challenges that we would inevitably face, on this path. I think all those sorts of things are what I would really have, been wishing for and hoping for. And truly, we were incredibly fortunate to find all those things in Shades of Life.
I wished that more doctors and hospitals were equipped. I wish I had that kind of support, because the hospital is almost like your first point of contact, because that's where you're going for your immunization, that's where you're going for your regular health checks for your child, or for to assess his his development and all of that. And I feel like if at a certain point in his development, some basic assessment had been carried out, where they could say, oh, there's something here that you need to probe further, even if they didn't have all the skill in terms of assessing and diagnosing and all of that, but being able to recognize that there's something we need, we think you should get checked, it would have made a world of difference. It would have made a world of difference. And then for schools as well, I feel like if I had more support from the school, I'm glad that they were able to identify the fact that he was different. That's a thing I'm thankful for, because it then helped me probe deeper. But I feel like if they had, for instance, a directory of doctors I could call, or maybe developmental pediatricians I could call, centers like Shade of Life that they could refer me to, if they had that, I would have really felt supported. I would not have felt lost. I wouldn't have felt like, oh, I had to go searching on my own, go asking questions. I feel like if the school had some sort of directory of, this is who you can call, this is who you can go to, this is a support community you can join, maybe a community of mothers who were navigating the same thing, it would have made my journey significantly easier.
My motivation for going forward was just seeing that one child that made progress. Because once that first child came, then my supervisor send somebody to us and seeing this child progressing under our care. Okay. Yes, there were not a whole lot at the time, but we were seeing progress. We were just going by the books. This is what ABA is all about. We'll collect the data, trust it, and we could see the data and the child's development matching. And we had the parents giving us the feedback saying, oh, we're noticing all these small changes, progress. And so we were also reinforced that what we're doing was working. And so it just kept going and going and going. Just the fact that we were impacting the children positively, they were acquiring skills that they didn't have. There was a testimonial from families. That was all the motivation that we required to keep going. And that's still one of the things that drives us today.
When I newly joined, there's this client, he's still with us. He does not like seeing people through. He will not even come close to you. But when you call his name, he cries and moves away. A few days ago, I was munching on biscuits. So I called his name. He came close. I'm like, okay, that's a good one. I was asking him questions. He was responding. He didn't cry. He didn't move away. He just stood there and was responding. That's a very good one. Very good one. He has really come a long way. He has really come a long way.
The clients at the center, where when they came in, they couldn't do much. They didn't have the ability to be independent in some areas. And then in no time, they were able to make plans. They were able to do a lot more that their parents or caregivers would not even believe they can do.
Each child's journey or each family's journey is really different. And they touch differently, both on the positive and not so positive. There was this family that, I don't know, they would come, very sweet young fellow, but because I was working out of the house at the time, they would just leave their child here past closing hours, or they will come very early in the morning. So some people would think that we're running a dormitory or nanny business or something. I tried everything possible to correct that, especially as I didn't have any help anymore. And even if I did have help, the fact that I was operating out of my house didn't mean that you should leave your child here. And the child was struggling with vocalization. We're still working on that. But this child would then, and it was a child that we couldn't take our eyes off, because the child had what we call pica and would eat grass, anything that was inside, flowers, whatever. And then would engage in occasional self-injurious behavior when all the others had left and the child was the only one left behind. And I didn't like that. I tried everything to correct that, and it was just it was just a bit too much. But on the other hand, we've had the children. There's one particular one that would call us and would hang on Yetunde's neck. I don't know what to do. You people must have space for us. When are we starting? And all that. And they used to cross the bridge to come to us. It was just a lot for the family. But we just held their hands, walked through. And today, and it's just one of those parents or families that were really engaged and connected with us, in the sense that we would say maybe the homework would be sit down for 2 seconds, and they would really enforce it at home. And then they will call back and say, what are we doing today? Any day we kind of like miss assigning them anything, they're like, what's going on? You people, we didn't see shades of light. We're like, calm down, have a free moment, But they were so invested in their child's well-being, development, that it was real teamwork. And today, when the child has transitioned to school independently, we have, in fact, there's so many lovely stories. There was another one too, like that, when we said, oh, this child isn't school ready. You need to equip the child before sending them into the school environment. And they gladly did so. We drew the child from school, and this is a child that when we did the initial gap assessment, I think the child's score was at 0.5 or 1 out of 170, meaning that 170, the child has all the skills that they should have at age 4 and they're school ready. From 0.5 for 1, I would have to check, but it just was so low. And in 2.5, 3 years of intense teamwork, this child transitioned into school, and we started with gradual, going some days to test the water and not going. And then we now moved into, okay, you can go every day, but half. So we would go into their homes to when the child would come to us, and then we transitioned into, okay, we will come to your home. And guess what? We miss the child dearly, but independence has been achieved and the child is maintaining. And that's just to show you the power of collaborating with the family and the family doing exactly what they've been advised to do. I mean, we're supposed to be professionals and experts, but we don't understand your child more than you do. You spend the greater majority as parents with the child, but we're so happy that the family follows through with every recommendation. They were on board asking questions. And as much as we miss the child, we've had to let go, give the child a clap, parents thumbs up, pat them on the back and say, look, we're here if you need additional support anytime, any day. That's the sort of thing that gladdens my heart, and of course the heart of every Shades of Life member.
Autism is not synonymous with an intellectual disability. The second thing, autism is not a spiritual problem that your child has. The third thing, the fact that your child is on the spectrum is not your fault, especially for mothers. It's not something you did or didn't do right when you were pregnant, when you gave birth to the child. It's not because your child sat in front of the TV for a while and watched cartoon. We need to do better. We need to educate ourselves better. The fifth thing that I'd say is that autism doesn't mean, it's not the end of hope for your child. It doesn't mean that your child will not thrive. It doesn't mean your child will not be independent. It doesn't mean your child won't go to college or to university. It doesn't mean your child will not get married. It doesn't mean that your hopes and your dreams for your child is dashed. No. I just want everyone to know that there is hope. There is ample hope. There's a lot of hope for you, for your child. All you need to do is get that child the right support. Don't feel the need to hide your child. Don't feel the need to hide the fact that your child has other needs. I'm hoping that you will even begin to see the uniqueness in your child's strength, your child's abilities that are not even common, that a lot of other children don't have, and you'll be able to focus on your child's positive attributes and their strength, and you will focus on honing your child's strength, because some of the most incredible people that we celebrate today, some of the most brilliant innovators that we celebrate today are people who are on the spectrum, or are people who have once been diagnosed with some sort of, disability or disorder or whatever it is, So there's a lot that your child can be, and you just need to believe that and give that child the necessary support.
What I would really want to see in our society and encourage is, whether or not you understand something, show kindness, show sympathy. You don't have to understand something fully to treat someone with kindness and consideration. To those who perhaps don't have any sort of experience of neurodivergence, if you encounter kids who are a little bit different, if you encounter young adults who are a little bit different, or even adults, to be honest, who may not know they're on the spectrum or know they're on the spectrum, whatever else the case may be, seek to be kind, seek to learn, seek to be open, and caring about how you approach those things. And I think if that's the way you treat it, you'll really be doing a wonderful thing.
Human organisms, or any organism really, living organism, tends to be afraid of what they don't understand. And so their response to that situation would be to label that incident, that unknown, with whatever it is that they feel would help them understand. When you don't understand a child's behavior, don't term it bad parenting. Don't think they have a spiritual problem. Don't give it a label that would help you deal with the situation, or even as a parent, deny the situation. What I would rather like to see and encourage us to do would be to ask questions. Again, because autism has no face. It's not visible, you can't see it. So if the person is behaving in line with the symptoms of being on a spectrum, it's going to be difficult for us to understand. But if we ask questions to understand, to know, like he says, seek ye first to know. When we then know, it makes it easier to either have compassion or refer the family to where they can get help, or even to be more empathetic. So let's seek to understand. Once we understand and we have knowledge, it would then reduce a whole lot of other things that hinge on that. Things like stigmatization, demonizing, and all whatnot. So understanding and knowledge, I would like to see that change when it comes to autism. My biggest dream would be that Shades of Life, the whole entity, will be a household name in Nigeria and internationally, because we have people that are outside of the country who we've worked with and who keep referring people. I would like for us to be present in all the states in Nigeria. I would also love to have the team that I have now. They're just fantastic. They're the best. Over time, they've imbibed the values, not just part of my own personal values, but they've grown to be formidable resource people in the country, I must say. And I'm very proud of them. So I would like to see them multiply themselves in not just all the locations that we hope to have in the country, but to impact, to nurture others that are coming up in the field, that they would always be pace setters and they will always be leaders. But most importantly, that whatever we're doing as an organization will be done to the highest standards, keep adding value to children's lives and families. As for the foundation, that will be able to help people to keep working with those who cannot afford to pay for these services on their own, to partner with as many people as possible, not just big brands or just people that understand the mission and that will be there for us long term, long after I've gone, and if Jesus tarries, so that it doesn't have to be something that's centered on me. I want to be able to, just like I say to my people, just walk away and you people just give me enough money to eat salad daily. That would be something that will really gladden my heart, that I don't have to be there for things to keep working.